Mia and Max were 12-year-old twins who lived in a very small and old apartment in a crowded city. The building was noisy, the walls were cracked, and the heater didn't always work in the winter. The windows rattled when the wind blew, and the ceiling sometimes leaked when it rained. They had very little, but they tried their best to smile every day. Life had been hard for as long as they could remember. They lived with their mother, Elena, who worked very hard to take care of them. She cleaned offices at night and came home tired every morning. Even though she was often coughing and looked pale, she always kissed them on the forehead and asked, "Did you sleep well, my little stars?" Mia and Max knew their mother was sick, but she never told them how serious it was. She didn't want them to worry. Elena had no other family. No brothers, no sisters, no parents, just the three of them. The twins didn't have toys like other kids at school. They didn't have the newest clothes or lunch money every day. But they had each other, and they had their mother's love, which felt more powerful than anything else. Despite her illness and long hours at work, Elena always made time for them. Every night before bed, she told them stories. Some were made up and some were about her own life. One night, Mia asked, "Mama, did you ever have a best friend?" Elena smiled softly and looked at the small wooden box she kept in her nightstand drawer. She opened it carefully and took out a faded photograph. It showed a young man, maybe 16 years old, sitting on some stone steps outside a building. He wore an old jacket, and his eyes looked serious but kind. "This," she said, "was someone very special. When I was a girl, not much older than you, I lived in a group home. It wasn't easy, but there was a boy there who always stood up for me, who made me feel like I mattered. His name was Thomas." "Where is he now?" Max asked. "I don't know," Elena replied, her voice soft. "We lost touch when the home shut down, but I kept this photo all these years. He believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. He gave me hope." The twins didn't understand it fully at the time, but they knew this photo meant a lot to their mom. She kept it safe like it was treasure. She never let anything happen to it, not even dust. It stayed in that box, on a piece of velvet cloth, next to a letter they weren't allowed to read yet. "One day," she said, "you'll understand." As the days went by, Elena's health grew worse. She started coughing more. Some days she couldn't go to work at all. The twins tried to help. Mia would sweep the floor. Max would heat up soup. They didn't complain. They just wanted their mother to rest. But even when she was weak, Elena tried to smile for them. One morning, the twins woke up and found the apartment too quiet. The heater was humming, and the traffic outside still roared like always. But something felt wrong. Mia walked into their mother's room and called her name. She didn't answer. Max followed, and together they stood beside her bed, holding each other's hand. Their mother looked peaceful, like she was only sleeping, but she wasn't breathing. Mia touched her cheek. It was cold. Neighbors came, then the ambulance, then people from child services. Everything happened so fast, and it felt like a dream. That didn't make sense. The twins were taken to a quiet office with people they didn't know. They were told their mom was gone. The words didn't feel real. How could their mom be gone? She was supposed to tuck them in that night. She was supposed to tell them another story. A kind woman named Julia, a caseworker, told them she would help find them a safe place. "Do you have anything you want to take with you from your home?" she asked. Mia nodded quickly. "Yes, the box, from Mama's drawer." Julia took them back to the apartment, and Mia opened the drawer gently. The wooden box was still there, just as their mother had left it. She held it like it was made of gold. "What's in it?" Julia asked kindly. "Our mom said this man saved her life," Max said. "She kept his photo forever. She said he was a good person." Julia looked at the photo but didn't recognize the man. He looked like someone important, but no one knew who he was. The name Thomas was written lightly on the back in neat handwriting, along with the word "thank you." Back in the office, the twins sat holding the box close. Julia said they might need to go into temporary care until more plans could be made. Mia looked at the photo again and whispered, We have to find him. Max nodded. He's the reason. Mama didn't give up. Julia listened carefully. Do you know who he is? We only know his first name, Mia said. But maybe someone can help us. We have to try. And so, with nothing but a box, a photo, and a name, two young twins began a quiet mission. They didn't know it yet, but their journey would soon lead them to someone they never imagined meeting, a man who had once been part of their mother's past and who was now living a very different life. A man who didn't know that somewhere. Out there, a small photo of him had helped keep a woman strong and would soon change his own world in a way he never expected. The days after their mother passed felt like a blur to Mia and Max. Everything changed so fast. One moment they were sitting at the small kitchen table, listening to their mom hum softly as she poured them tea. The next they were in a quiet office with strangers, holding on tightly to the only thing they had left of her, the wooden box. The social worker, Julia, tried to be gentle with them. She told them they were going to a temporary home with a nice foster family. But Mia and Max weren't thinking about where they were going. They were thinking about their mother's stories, her words, and that one photo in the box. The man in it, Thomas, had somehow been a big part of her past. Maybe he wasn't just a memory. Maybe, just maybe, he could be found. One evening, in the small bedroom of the foster home, Mia looked at the photo again under the dim lamp beside her bed. She traced the edge with her finger. We can't just forget about this, she said, quietly. Max, sitting cross-legged on the bed across from her, nodded. I keep thinking, what if he's still out there? What if he wants to know about Mama? Mia opened the folded paper in the box, a letter their mom had written but never sent. It wasn't sealed. The words inside were short but full of feeling. Dear Thomas, if you ever see this, I want you to know you helped me believe in myself when no one else did. You never asked for anything, but your kindness changed my life. I wish you could meet my children. I named my son Max because you used to say, maximize your dreams. I never forgot. With all my heart, Elena. Mia's eyes filled with tears. She didn't cry much, not in front of people, but reading those words made her heart feel both full and broken at the same time. I think he deserves to know, she whispered. But how do we find someone from a photo and a first name? Max asked. It could be anyone. Mia thought for a moment. Then she reached for the foster home's old laptop. The internet connection was slow, but it worked. She typed Thomas Group Home into a search engine, then added Elena and photo. Nothing useful came up. She tried again, and again, changing the words. After an hour, Max pointed at the screen. Look, that guy kind of looks like the one in the photo. Mia clicked on the link. A news article appeared about a billionaire tech CEO named Thomas Grayson. There was a recent photo of him standing in front of a tall glass building. He looked older than in the picture they had, but the smile and the eyes were the same. She held the old photo up beside the screen. I think it's him. Max leaned closer. It is him. They stared at the article. He owned one of the biggest technology companies in the world. He had his own tower in the city. He gave speeches, appeared on TV, and was known for helping charities, but he's a billionaire, Max said almost in a whisper. Why would he want to hear from us? Mia didn't answer for a while. Then she looked down at their mom's letter. Because he meant something to her, and she meant something to him. Maybe he's been wondering what happened to her too. The key. Next morning after breakfast, they spoke to Julia. They showed her the photo and the letter and explained everything. Julia listened carefully. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I don't know if you'll be able to meet him. People like this get thousands of messages every day. But I can try to make a call. The twins waited anxiously as Julia made phone calls and sent emails. Most people said it wasn't possible. Some didn't answer. Days passed. The hope in Mia's chest started to feel smaller. Then one afternoon, Julia returned to the foster home with surprising news. I spoke to someone in Mr. Grayson's office. They were curious. They want to know more. They agreed to give you 5 minutes with him, just 5. Mia's eyes widened. Max froze. You mean we get to meet him? Julia nodded. Tomorrow morning, we'll go to the Grayson Tower. That night, the twins could hardly sleep. They didn't know what to expect. Would he remember their mom? Would he even believe them? They ironed their best clothes and made sure the photo and the letter were carefully placed in the wooden box. Mia even tied a ribbon around it. The next morning, they stepped out of the Yeo car in front of the enormous glass tower. It reached so high into the sky that they had to tilt their heads all the way back just to see the top. Dozens of people in suits walked in and out. Everyone looked busy and important. A kind assistant met them in the lobby and took them through security. Then they rode a shiny elevator to the top floor. The twins stayed close to Julia, clutching the box tightly. Finally, they were led into a bright modern office. Large windows showed the whole city from up high. Behind a big desk stood a tall man in a gray suit, Thomas Grayson. He looked surprised to see two small children walk into his office. "You must be Mia and Max," he said gently. Mia took a step forward. Her hands were shaking a little. She held out the wooden box and said, "This was our mom's. She said the man in the photo saved her when she was our age. She told us his name was Thomas." Thomas Grayson carefully opened the small wooden box. Inside, there was a folded letter and an old photograph resting on a piece of soft cloth. His fingers brushed against the photo, and for a moment, everything around him seemed to fade away. His office, the tall glass windows, the noise of the busy city far below, it all went quiet. He picked up the photo with both hands and stared at it. It was a picture of him, many years ago, sitting on the steps of the group home where he had lived as a teenager. He remembered the jacket he was wearing, the way he used to stare at the ground, thinking about the future he wasn't sure he'd ever have. He was only 16 then, unsure, alone, and trying to stay strong. But what surprised him the most wasn't just the photo, it was the memory that came with it. "I remember this day," he said quietly, almost to himself. "Someone took this when we were leaving for school." That home closed just a few weeks later. Mia and Max watched him closely. They didn't know what to say. They had never seen someone go from looking calm to deeply moved so quickly. Thomas's eyes stayed fixed on the photograph, and then slowly, he turned to the folded letter in the box. He opened it gently. As he read the words, his expression changed again. First surprise, then sadness, then something warm, something like gratitude. He sat down slowly at the edge of his desk, holding the letter to his chest. His voice was soft. "Elena, you knew her?" Mia asked, stepping forward. Thomas looked up at her and nodded. "Yes, I did. We were just kids, but she was kind. She helped me in ways I didn't even understand back then." The twins were quiet. They had always wondered who this man was. Now they were starting to see that their mother's stories were real. "She said you believed in her," Max said carefully. "She said you gave her hope." Thomas smiled gently. "That's funny, because I always thought she gave me hope." He paused and looked out the window for a moment. "We were both in the same group home. Life was tough. But Elena, she was special. She used to sing softly when things got hard. She shared her food when others didn't. One time, I was ready to give up, and she told me, 'You don't have to be rich to matter. You just have to care.' I never forgot that." Mia and Max looked at each other. That sounded just like something their mother would say. "We never knew much about that part of her life," Mia said. "She didn't talk about it a lot, just that she kept this picture because it meant everything to her." Thomas looked down at the photo again. "I always wondered what happened to her. I tried searching for some of the kids from the group home after I got older, but there weren't many records. And then, life moved fast." There was a long pause. The room felt still. Thomas finally looked at the twins again. "Thank you for bringing this to me. I can't tell you how much this means." Mia stepped closer and placed the box gently on his desk. "She always wanted us to know who helped her become strong." She said you were the reason she believed good people still existed. Thomas's eyes became misty again. He took a deep breath. You two are a lot like her. Max smiled. That's the best thing anyone could say to us. Just then, Thomas's assistant quietly stepped into the room and whispered, You have a video meeting in 10 minutes, sir. Thomas nodded but didn't take his eyes off the children. Clear my schedule for the next hour. The assistant blinked. But Thomas looked at her kindly. Please. This is more important. She nodded and left the room. Thomas turned back to the twins. Would you mind telling me more about her? About her life after we lost touch? Mia and Max sat with him and began to share stories. How she used to dance while cooking even when she was tired. How she worked at night so she could help with homework in the afternoon. How she'd tell them funny bedtime stories and save up just to buy a birthday cake. As they spoke, Thomas listened closely. His face was serious but kind. He didn't just nod. He heard them. Every word. She got sick, Max said quietly. But she never showed how bad it was. She just kept going. Mia added, Even when she had nothing, she still helped people. Thomas leaned back in his chair, his hands folded together. She was always like that. She never thought about herself first. For a while, they just sat together in silence. Not the heavy kind of silence, but the peaceful kind, where no one needed to speak because they all understood. Then Thomas said, You know, I have a lot of things in this building, awards, projects, investments. But this, he held up the photo again. This might be the most valuable thing I've ever been given. Mia smiled. It was hers for a long time. Now it's yours. Thomas stood and gently placed the photo in a frame on his desk. Then he turned back to the twins. I want to do something for you, he said softly. Something your mom would have wanted. They looked at him, unsure of what he meant. Not because I feel sorry for you, he continued, but because I think we were meant to meet. I think she brought you to me. Mia and Max sat quietly, not knowing what to say. But deep inside, they both felt something they hadn't felt in days. A sense of calm, a feeling of safety. Thomas smiled warmly. Let's figure this out together. Whatever you need. You're not alone anymore. The sun was shining brightly outside the tall glass windows of Thomas Grayson's office, but inside, everything felt warm for a different reason. The billionaire CEO, who was known by many for his success and his wealth, had just met two children, who reminded him of something more important than all his business achievements: kindness, memories, and the quiet strength of a woman named Elena. Mia and Max sat quietly, still unsure what would happen next. Meeting Mr. Grayson had been more than they ever expected. They had come with nothing but a photo and a letter. Now they felt they had shared something very important with someone who actually cared. Thomas stood up and gently walked over to a shelf near his desk. On it were pictures of his past, awards from his work, and items that reminded him of how far he had come. He moved one frame aside and placed the photo of young Elena and himself right in the middle. Then he looked back at the twins. Your mom was right, he said. You don't need money to make a difference. What she gave me was hope, and I've carried it my whole life even when I didn't know it. Max tilted his head. What do you mean? Thomas smiled gently. There were moments in my life when I felt lost, when I wanted to give up. But every time I remembered that someone once believed in me, I kept going. I didn't have her photo, but I had her words in my heart. And now, here you are. Proof that she never stopped believing. Mia held the box close to her chest. We just wanted you to know, that's all. She didn't want anything from you. I know, Thomas replied. But now that I do know, I can't pretend this didn't happen. I don't want to. He paused for a moment, thinking. Then he added, Can I show you something? The twins nodded. Thomas walked toward a panel near the wall and pressed a button. A screen appeared, showing pictures of buildings, homes, and smiling children. This is a charity I started years ago. We help kids who grow up like I did, like your mom did. No family, no support. We give them a chance. Mia's eyes lit up. She would have loved that, Thomas nodded. I started it because of someone I never forgot. I didn't even know her name anymore, but it was her kindness that pushed me to build this. I see now it was your mother. Max pointed at the screen. You help kids like us? Thomas looked at them both. Yes. And now, I want to help you. Mia and Max glanced at each other, unsure. What do you mean? Mia asked. Well, Thomas began carefully. I don't want to rush things. I know you've been through a lot, but if you're willing, I'd like to be part of your lives. We could start with visits, talks, and if everything feels right, maybe something more. He didn't say the word, but both twins felt it. Adoption. It was a big idea. A huge change. But somehow it didn't feel strange. Mia looked at Max and he gave a tiny nod. They weren't saying yes, not yet. But they weren't saying no either. Thomas didn't press. Take your time, he said kindly. No pressure. You'll always have me no matter what. The twins smiled. That was enough for now. Later that afternoon, Thomas took them on a quiet tour of his company. He didn't show them the fancy boardrooms or talk about money. Instead, he showed them the rooms where people worked on ideas, helped others, and designed new ways to make life better for people. In one hallway, there was a wall filled with photos of people who had inspired the company. Thomas pointed to one empty frame at the end. I've been saving this space, he said. I didn't know why. Now I do. He took out his phone and gently asked, May I take your picture? Just one, so I can add it next to your mom's photo? Mia and Max stood together, smiling softly. He clicked the photo and showed it to them. Perfect. That evening, the twins left the building with Julia, their caseworker, but everything felt different. The streets didn't seem as cold. The city lights looked a little brighter. And even though they were going back to the foster home for now, it didn't feel like the end. It felt like a new beginning. As they drove away, Max looked out the window. Do you think Mom knows what happened today? Mia nodded slowly. I think she sent us to him. Back in the office, Thomas sat alone for a while, reading Elena's letter again. He read every word slowly, carefully. He closed his eyes and thought about the girl who had once believed in him, who had lifted him up when he had nothing. He whispered, Thank you, Elena. Then he turned to his computer and began writing something, not a business letter, not a press release, a new project. He titled it, The Elena Home, a new space for children without families, with warm beds, caring mentors, music, and books. A place where every child would feel seen, valued, and loved. A place full of hope. The next day he sent a message to Julia. Please let Mia and Max know I've set up a scholarship fund in their mother's name. It will help children like them go to school and follow their dreams, just like she would have wanted. And whenever they're ready, my door is always open. In just a few days, the lives of Mia and Max had gone from sadness and loss to something new, not perfect, not easy, but filled with kindness, memory, and the start of something beautiful. And it all began with a small wooden box, a photo, and the quiet strength of a mother's love. Weeks had passed since Mia and Max first walked into the tall glass building with the small wooden box. Life had changed in many ways since that day, but the biggest change wasn't about where they lived or what they had. It was about how they felt inside. For the first time in a long while, they didn't feel alone. Thomas Grayson kept his promise. He didn't rush them or pressure them. Instead, he took time to get to know them. He invited them over on weekends, sent them thoughtful letters, and even surprised them with handmade storybooks. Books based on stories their mother used to tell them. He had remembered every detail they shared about her and turned their memories into something beautiful. One Saturday afternoon, Mia and Max were visiting his home. It wasn't the big house or fancy furniture that made them feel comfortable. It was the little things. A framed picture of their mother on the fireplace mantel, a warm blanket that smelled like fresh laundry, a small whiteboard in the kitchen, With their names written in bright blue marker, Thomas made hot chocolate for them with whipped cream, just the way their mom used to. As they sat around the kitchen table, Mia finally asked the question that had been in her heart for days. Do you really want us here? Or are you just being kind because of our mom? Thomas put down his mug gently and looked at both of them. Mia, he said, your mom was one of the kindest people I ever knew. But I don't want to help you just because of her. I want to be here for you. For the strong, brave, thoughtful kids you are. Max looked up. Even though we're not like other kids? Thomas smiled. You're exactly the kind of kids the world needs more of. You've been through hard times and still found a way to be kind. That's something not everyone can do. The twins were quiet, but their hearts felt a little lighter. That evening, as Thomas drove them back to the foster home, he turned to them and said gently, I've been thinking. If you ever feel ready, only if you want to, I would love to become your guardian, not to change your life, but to be part of it. Mia looked at Max. He nodded slowly. They both smiled but said nothing just yet. It was a big step, and Thomas understood that. In the weeks that followed, they visited more often. Thomas helped Mia with her school projects and read books with Max. He listened when they wanted to talk and gave them space when they needed it. Slowly, they built trust, like small bricks forming a strong home. One day, Julia called a meeting with Thomas and the children. She looked pleased as she held a few papers in her hand. I have good news, she said. We've finished the review. If you're ready, the court has approved Thomas as your legal guardian. Mia and Max stared at her. You mean, it's official? Max asked. Julia nodded. If you say yes. Thomas looked at them, not saying anything. He didn't want to rush their answer. Mia stood up and walked over to him. You're not just helping us, she said. You're giving us a family. Max grinned. Yeah, we'd like that. That day they moved into Thomas's home, not as guests but as family. There were challenges, of course. Mia had trouble falling asleep the first few nights. Max sometimes got quiet when he missed their mom. But Thomas was always patient. He never tried to replace their mother. Instead, he helped them keep her memory alive. They created a memory wall in the hallway, photos of Elena, notes she had written, and even her favorite song lyrics framed in colorful paper. Every night before bed, they would stop there, touch the wooden frame and whisper, Good night, Mama. Thomas also continued to work on the Elena home, the charity center he had started in her honor. But now, he had two helpers, Mia and Max. They helped paint the walls, choose books for the reading corner, and even named the garden outside Elena's hope. Children who came to the center asked about the name, and Mia and Max would smile and say, It's named after someone who taught us what love really means. One day during a quiet evening at home, Thomas sat with the twins on the porch. The sun was setting, painting the sky in soft oranges and pinks. Max leaned his head on Thomas's shoulder, while Mia held a book in her lap. You know, Thomas said, the day you walked into my office with that box, I thought I was the one helping you. But the truth is, you helped me more. Mia looked up at him. How? You reminded me where I came from. You brought your mother back into my life. And you reminded me that real success isn't about money or buildings. It's about people. About heart. Max smiled. Mama would be proud of you. Thomas looked out at the sky, tears in his eyes. I hope so. That night, as they got ready for bed, Max found an old photo of their mom and placed it on the bedside table. We're okay now, Mama, he whispered. Mia nodded. We found him, and he found us. Their lives weren't perfect. They still missed their mother every day. But they now had love, laughter, and someone who would always be there for them. They had found not just a guardian, but a father figure. A home not built with bricks, but with memories, care, and second chances. And all of it began with a photo, a letter, and the quiet courage to knock on the door of someone who had once been lost. Just like them.